Jesus just doesn't want to do like he wants to be more like Hollywood dude. Like, when's the last time you seen that nigga with a hat? I feel like he's in a and I can't speak for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, ask him.
So y'all haven't spoken.
I mean, like seeing each other in passing. Like, yo, what's up?
Or
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, nah, like not talking like, yo, hey, how was your day? Like, nah, not like that. I think it's weird, but Jesus is a weird dude. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a different kind of dude. Like, oh, like I don't know Jesus. I kind of don't know Jesus like that. You know what I mean? Like the inner workings. You feel me? Like you never know what somebody else is thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what was on his mind. Like I don't know what his plan of attack was for the next whatever, however many years. But it was well established amongst the three of us. Like, yo, Bodega Boys is not just like a LLC to hold money and loophole taxes. This is going to be, we're going to pump merchandise out of here. We're going to eventually this thing could grow to be a production studio. If you know this industry, you know that if you are the guy pulling the strings, you get the most, like the production company gets the budget and then they allocate it as they see fit. You feel me? So it's like if the budget is coming to us and not, Jax Media or whoever the third party production company is, if it's coming to Bodega Boys Productions, then we decide what we do with that dough. And there ain't no phone call saying, yo, how much money is in the budget? Because you got all that info. You got your team, you got your people, and that's how the shit works. It was more so like a sigh of relief. It was always like, yo, it got to be both of y'all. I ended up getting more looks just for the simple fact that I'm bilingual. You know what I'm saying? So like me being able to embrace that, and I'm like, yo, now I can hit the Latin market. All these things, I was just like, okay, now I could do these without having to, think about, oh, how is he going to feel about this? Like when you are in a partnership, you know this, when you're in a partnership with somebody, you're kind of beholden to them. You know what I'm saying? In a certain way.
Yes.
Because you have to respect their opinions, their input, etc. So when you're flying solo, the only input is yours. I felt like this was doing like a lot of like go along to get along. Answering emails with like the automatic Gmail response, like, sounds good. You know what I mean? So that was like 8 paragraphs long. I got 4 kids. I got 2 mortgages. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to think, I got to play chess. Wish you the best. Like, yo, live your life. Be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, eat, pray, love, bro. Like, do your thing.
Mero talks about Desus choosing to distance himself from the Bodega Boys brand. Now, this was a conversation had on AMP Radio, and to me, it was the most detailed conversation about Desus and Mero's split, more so than what he said on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn or the show he does with Melo. I think this was kind of the first time that I saw the ins and outs of why they were distanced from each other. And you know me, I will continue to do videos about podcasts that have broken up, largely because I think these podcasts touch a nerve with every fan base that became a big fan of them. Such a nerve that it doesn't really get settled within a year or two of the breakup. Anyway, this was a fascinating deep dive into kind of how Mero slowly started to realize how Desus no longer wanted to be affiliated with him. As the Desus and Mero brand grew, it kind of became some type of show. And by that I mean, many thought Desus and Mero were like actually friends before they got together. And as time went on, it became clear that this was a artificial relationship created to make a podcast, right? These guys were Twitter influencers who some people saw and decided to put together in order to garner a large and loyal fan base. And both of these brothers was also talented at making content. Over time, as the business started to overwhelm this artificial relationship, you saw kind of how things could fall apart. And I think that Mero, he was the one that was more business savvy initially, and it looks like he got Desus the representation through Victor. And Victor was kind of the person who I guess would give Desus a crash course in the industry. But as time went on, Desus probably did not like what he signed. He didn't like the setup. He didn't like the creative control. And Mero's saying that Desus doesn't want to do Bodega Boys type stuff. To me, indicates that he wasn't invested in the brand because he probably didn't have any ownership of it. And on Math Hoffa's podcast, Mero says that he owned the brand. Could it have been something where Desus slowly started to realize he was getting snaked? I would guess that Mero, as a result of having all of the business infrastructure, felt like he was more entitled to what the Bodega Boys brand was. And now if you look at the two of them, yes, they're doing great things. Well, Mero's doing stuff. He has his new show, which was akin to the old Viceland show. However, it's not Desus and Mero. Saw a couple episodes of it. It's not even close. Then you have Victory Light, which is also a good podcast by Mero, but it's not Desus and Mero. It's close. And then you have Desus, who went completely silent, and it's unclear where he currently stands, largely because he's went through some losses with his family. And yes, there's losses with his family, but there's also losses in terms of losing the Bodega Boy brand. I'm sure that very much was an emotional damage situation for Desus. It sucks when you help create something that takes you from low income. I'm not saying, I don't know how much Desus was making, but I would assume it was the lower income to a bunch of income, and then it evaporates right in front of you. I would love to hear Desus' side of the story. He hasn't said anything, and I think it's largely because he's trying to keep it positive. But, there's been a couple passive-aggressive tweets here and there. And I think if he starts to talking, he will say Mero snaked him. He will say that he signed something that he didn't really agree with. He will say that Mero was probably unprofessional. And I'm going to be releasing more clips of this AMP interview Mero did where he talked about the breakup, just because I think it gave the greatest insight. And when he was on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, he kind of talked around a bunch of things. I think he's afraid to say what it really was. And I don't know, y'all. I look at the Desus and Mero thing as a terrible loss for all parties. Like, at least with Rory, Mal, and Joe, the case could be made that while their podcasts are never going to be as big as they were together, they still doing big things separate of each other. Like, Rory and Mal are at the head of the coverage of the Drake Kendrick Lamar thing, whether you like what side they took. And then you have Joe Budden, who is still at the top of the industry and someone people look forward to when it comes to the music business deep dives and funny breakdowns. Whereas Desus and Mero, I don't know, their stock is very low. Their stock is not what it once was. Separate of each other, neither seems to have found footing. Desus is just not doing anything. Mero feels like it's watered down. Like it doesn't rise to the same level of the content he used to make. One thing Mero is doing that I find very fascinating is he's still on Reddit breaking things down. Like he's trying to take over the Desus and Mero Reddit and migrate people to his situation. So he's still very tactical. He still has a family. You can tell when someone has a family and I gotta make money. I ain't got time for all of this. But let me know what you think about what Mero said. Do you feel he's being forthcoming, or do you feel he's giving you what he wants you to here. All right, y'all. I got more Desus and Mero content coming. I got more Rory and Maul content. Shout out to everybody who's tapped in. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. This is Nanny from The Stop. Peace.